Want to retire in 10 years? Here's what you need to do, according to Ben Lafort over at medium.com. I've read Ben a couple times. I got a positive thinking on him. Not sure why. I haven't read this article, so we'll see. But we'll see what he says. Now, this is dateline August 2018, so a couple years old. But let's actually take a look at his repertoire, whatever you say in Francais. All right, so does Spotify just kill the 9-to-5 work structure? That's interesting. Yeah, there is old Ben there. Let's see. Generating passive income is hard. Here's a better option. Oh, yeah. I think I actually did read that article. Financial paradox of owning a home. Most people's wealth is increasingly concentrated in their home. All right, so Ben, I like him, man. So you should follow this guy. Did he just publish this 3 hours ago? Huh. How much money is needed to build generational wealth? Three powerful. All right. Anyway, so let's read this other article here. Like I said, I got a pleasant idea that Ben's a good guy, but we shall see. I reserve the right to say no. So let's read this. Anyone who follows Mr. Money Mustache knows that the math behind early retirement is shockingly simple. The more of your take-home pay that you save, the earlier you'll reach financial independence. Let's quickly define a few of the terms. So FIRE is financial independence, early retirement, take-home pay, savings rate, how much you can live on. So how do I retire in 10 years? And I think old Mr. Money Mustache is very much follows the 4% rule, which boggles the mind. But all right, so you simply need to save around 65 of your take-home pay over the next 10 years. Jeez, okay. I never promise an easy solution, but it's simple. Sometimes in life, the simplest things are incredibly difficult. Mr. Money Mustache simplifies things even more for us by doing the math to show us when we will reach FIRE, financially independent, retire early, given different savings rates, okay? The following table reinforces the fact that our savings rate is the most critical factor in reaching financial independence. All right, so if you're going to save 20%, you have to work 37 years in retirement. What? That doesn't make any sense. If you save 50% of your money, you can retire in 17 years. What? What the hell is that? How does he? I mean, all right. The savings rate that many in the FIRE community strive for is 50%. If you can hit a 50% savings rate, you will retire in 17 years. Each of us will look at the above chart and find a different number that makes our jaw drop to the ground. Yeah, as a personal finance nerd, the one that jumped out at me is the average savings rate of 10% would take 51 years to retire before reaching financial independence. Therefore, it should not be surprising to learn that more and more Americans are working until their 70s. What the? I don't even. All right, where is this even coming from? Does he? Like, how does? Let's see. Let's see what this is freaking nuts. All right. All right. This is from Mr. Money Mustache. All right. All right. So I reviewed my own path at age 30, retirement, a brief history of the stash. Blah blah blah. Okay. So he talks about your savings rate. So we'll have. It turns out when it boils right down to it, your time to reach retirement depends on only one factor: your savings rate of your take-home pay. If you want to break it down, how much you take home each year, how much you can live on. Well, those numbers, they're quite intuitive and easy to figure out. Okay. I don't get it, man. If you're reasonable, okay, there we go. All right, so here, okay, yeah, 4%. You'll live off the 4% safe withdrawal rate after retirement. All right, whatever, man. So let's see what Ben says here. I hope he's not buying that hook, line, and sinker. Assumptions that, here we go. Assumptions. Your investments earn 5% above inflation. The key here is above inflation. To better understand how inflation impacts savers, read this post. Why do I keep doing that? Because I sit there and my mind boggles at the complete frustration I have for these numbers. From 1966 to 1982, you did not live at 5% above inflation. All right. So that's a huge assumption. I'm not saying this guy's saying you're going to, but my goodness, to make that assumption. Then if you're in bonds, you're inherently not living above inflation. So the problem, let's just go back to this. If we're using a 4% rule, all right, this is once you retire, I grant you. But if we're using a 4% rule, 40% is in bonds. Bonds are giving us what, 2%. You're not, inflation is roughly 2%. Inherently, those aren't 5% above inflation. So if you're going to assume your investments earn 5% above inflation, that means you can't have any bonds. You have to have aggressive stocks, man. So if the 2% is inflation, 5% above that, that's 7% a year. All right, that's historically in the low end for stocks, I grant you, but it's certainly not each and every year, not linear. Secondly, I'm not expecting stocks to give us 5% above inflation. John Bogle is not expecting stocks to give us 5% above inflation. So in that case, if we don't get 5%, we get 4%, it just makes us have to work even longer. And so that way we can swing into a portfolio with 40% is earning essentially less than inflation, or at least right at inflation. Then you throw in taxes, it's earning less. This whole thing is based on numbers that just make no sense to me, man. Because what's going to happen is the idea is people are going to hear this. I'm not getting 5% above inflation, or I'm going to have to go incredibly risky. Not risque, but risky. And if I don't get 5% above inflation for 5 straight years, does that mean I'm doomed? Well, apparently, yeah, but you're not doomed. Why? Because people retired just fine in 1990s. They did, even though from 60, hell, I haven't run it, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. From 1966 to 1982, you did not get 5% a year above inflation. From 1960 to, let's look, actually, hold on. We'll check the number, shall we? Let's go to political calculations, and we're going to go to let's say 1960 to 1980. And I love this website. 1960 to 1980. All right, so we're going to go crack to the how. All right, and then we're going to go, then we're going to go to 1980 just to get an example of how bad inflation was back then. And this is just the S&P 500. All right, so let's see here. Yeah. Index rate of return with full dividend reinvestment, 1.96. 1.96. Without dividend reinvestments, you made negative money. So from 1960 to 1980, you got 2% a year above inflation. That ain't good, my friends. All right, so if we go to I don't know, let's just do 1966 to 1982. Let's just do 1980 for giggles first, and then we're going to say, what did that do? That got negative 5.03% if you did not reinvest dividends, and negative 1.3% if you did reinvest dividends. All right, let's go to 1966 to, what did I do? 1980. Let's go to I don't know, we'll go to friggin' 1990. See how that would probably look pretty good because the 80s are great. What did that do? That gave us, yeah, right here, man. Adjusted for inflation, 1966 to 1990. That's 24 flipping years. It gave us 3.61 if we did reinvest dividends. If we didn't reinvest dividends, it gave us negative numbers. Let's just go back to my whole life. We'll go from 1970, right, and let's just go to now for simplicity. I have no idea what it's going to be, so let's take a look. It gave us above inflation, adjusted for inflation. There you go. So we got 6.6 for my whole life adjusted with inflation, assuming you reinvested dividends. It's a pretty big assumption. All right, so let's just go back to 1970 to, friggin' 2010. We'll say 2010. So for 40 years, 1970 to 2010, for 40 years, she was so nice. Lord, she was lovey-dovey. We got 5.1% above inflation. That's all in the S&P 500, and that is reinvesting dividends. All right, so let's go back to 1970 to 2000. Man, we can see we're this is not a likely event that you get above inflation significantly. 5% above inflation. It just is not. Here we got here from 1970 to 2000, we kicked butt, took names, man. 8% above inflation. I'll take that. Let's go to 1970 to 2008, shall we? And that's when the market just collapsed. We'll go to March of 2009. And we can run these numbers any which way we want. But the idea that 5% above inflation is somewhat attainable is not. So here, 4.22, that's with dividends reinvested again. That just, man. And again, if we just go back to let's just go, what did I do? 1966, because that's 1966. Look at 1964 to 1984. We'll just use that for an example. 1984, boink. That's a 20-year time frame. And we'll say beginning of 1984, calculate, and we had 1.88. So you can see, let's go back to the Great Depression. We'll go to 1920. Now remember, this is deflation these times. We're going to go 1920 to 1940. Let's see. So we had deflation, 1920 to 1940. But there's the Great Depression. Well, it was deflationary. All right, so 1940. Let's see what we got there. And we had, now look at that. So we had, because inflation was low, we had 9.16% above inflation. Interesting, huh? So let's go to 1930 to 1940. So this might be interesting. Let's take a gander, shall we? We're going to gander. And we're going to gander here. And we had, in 1930 to 1940, we made almost 2% above inflation during the Great Depression. That seems odd, does it not? Because everyone's saying, the Great Depression, you lost your shorts. 1930 to 1950. All right, let's see what we got. Right there. And 2.7. Hey, but the point being is that there's getting 5% above inflation on any given retirement or any given 10-year period is not, that's tough to happen, man. All right. We got the 4% rule. We talked about a million times a Sunday. I got an email here. Okay. Since you want this money to sustain yourself forever, you'll only be withdrawing the gains, not the principal. Well, that ties in with the 4% rule. Okay. That doesn't tie in with the 4% rule. That 4% rule isn't you only withdraw the gains, not the principal. Tell me he's not. That doesn't make any sense. The thing I hear most from people I talk about financial independence, that it's nice for you, but I don't make enough money to do that. If you make blah blah blah, if you make $100,000 a year and you're spending $90,000 per year, you're still on a 51-year track record year for retirement. If you make $50,000 per year, save $25,000, you're on a 17-year track record for retirement. So it's a simple way to increase, but this whole thing is wrong, man. I see what he's kind of doing here. I see what he's doing. So he's basically saying he is okay. No, I get that. He said basically if you're spending $90,000 a year, so let me take that back. So he's saying if you're making, regardless of what you're making, this is what matters, what you're spending. So if you're spending $90,000 a year and you're making $200,000 a year, then you're on a 17-year. No, you're on a 17-year track record roughly because you're saving 50%. If you're making $100,000 a year and you're spending $25,000 a year, you're on a 75. You retire and whatever. I get that. That's actually not a bad observation. But it all comes down to not what you make, is what you spend, what you consume. It's all about expenses. The problem with that is this right here doesn't make any sense. Since you want this money to sustain yourself forever, you only be withdrawing the gains, not the principal. That's not what the 4% rule says. Not even close. Part two of that is that why would you want, I've talked about it a million times, why would you want to have a linear expenditure idea as you get old? There's no evidence that happens. None. Stop with this, man, please. But okay, good. But it does say first take a good hard look at expenses and see what you can live without. But don't say, oh my goodness, no, stop with this. You can't make people cut out things that are pleasurable. You can't. All right, so this right here, my light that I'm using here, that's an LED light. All right, LED light, I think that's like 4 watts. That's actually 15 watts. That's a little bit more than I would have thought. But anyway, you change out your lights, LED lights. Go from 60 watt incandescent to 6 watts. That's going to save you a lot of money, especially if you leave your lights on, which you should not do. Make sure you got an Energy Star fridge, all right? Make sure if you got an ice box, that's an Energy Star. Don't eat out as much. You can still eat out. I'm getting pizza night. Ippolito's here in on Woodward Boulevard has a deal on Mondays. We're going to take advantage of that. Buy deals. Go to Costco, a coupon clip. You know what I'm saying? When I say go to Costco, to load up in your ice box. Grow some of your own food. What else? Insulate your house. I'm telling you, that will save buku bucks on heating and air conditioning. But don't eliminate the things you love. Now, do I drink Starbucks one in a blue moon? Sure. My daughter tells me about people who drink Starbucks every day. And I'm like, where's that money? It's crazy. Don't do that. Don't be that person. But I agree with this. Once you've cut out, you gotta be careful for frivolous. If it's enjoyable spending, it's gonna be hard to cut out. I like wasabi almonds from I forgot the name brand. I get the Walmart brand for just regular roasted almonds, but I get the wasabi ones, which are twice as expensive because I like that. I'm not cutting those out. Of course, Walmart doesn't make them anyway. So you got to find some things you're spending frivolously and some things that you're not. I buy a lot of BOGO stuff. Buy one, get one over at Publix. In fact, I'm fixing to go to Publix here in just a few minutes. And I'm going to use some BOGO because buy one, get one. I got some, I get a lot of stuff on buy one, get one. You get a smoking deal. That's a way to reduce expenditures. Lots of different things you can do. If you ever heard the term house hacking, okay. Oh, right here. Once you've cut out all of your frivolous spending, look at what is likely your biggest expense, your housing, right? Ben, there you go. If housing is your biggest expense, then it makes sense the quickest way to increase your saving rate is to reduce its costs. I can 100% agree with that, 100%. Strongly remember house hack. I don't know what, I haven't read that. All right. Once you've addressed in fact, I just listened to let's see if this guy emailed me back. I emailed this guy from, I was watching a webinar, and this guy does MHC investing. He hasn't emailed me back. Anyway, it's called Manufactured Home Communities. And I'm telling you, man, I'm going to try and get him on here so I can interview him because maybe I'll do a different video on that. But someone's talking about tiny homes. And actually, someone asked me that on the live stream 2 nights ago. So what do you think about tiny homes? And I said along the same thing. I said, man, why would you buy a tiny home if you get a manufactured home? Which is 3 to 4 times the size, and it's for the same price. I don't get the tiny home thing. It's weird to me. Why not just get a manufactured home? Increasing your income is easier said than done. I agree. While most people throw up their hands and say this isn't for me, 100% right. So instead of increasing your income, reduce your expenditures. There are 2 classifications of side hustles. I need cash, make money from my passion, make hustles like starting a financial blog. Right on. I hope I will continue to share stories, ideas, and strategies. All right, well, good stuff. That's a pretty good article. I'm again, like I said, I have a fondness towards old Ben here, and I think I've read him a couple times on his channel. But good stuff, man. I'll put a link in the show notes, and follow that guy. But man, and just because I disagree with people on occasion doesn't mean I'm freaking he's wrong. I'm not. I'm just saying there's a different way to look at things. I think the financial independence, retire early, it's too orthodox, if that makes sense. And this is one of the things, maybe I'm just too much a contrarian, too much of an independent-minded guy. And that sounds good in theory, but trust me, being too independent, you're like, man, how come I just can't go along? I think I might be too independent, but I hear these things like these rules of thumb, but it's not gravity, if that makes sense. It's just some guy happened to, it's marketing is what it is. It's kind of like the CDC double mask thing. It's just marketing. It's marketing. If you actually look at the thing, you're like, that doesn't really make the same sense as I think a lot of people are letting on. It doesn't. It's kind of like the 4% rule. If you actually look into it, you're like, that doesn't make the same sense as a lot of people are letting on. It drives up the wall, frankly. But anyway, I'm not saying this, my man Ben, or even what's his name there, Mr. Money Mustache is saying that. I just say, come on, don't be so orthodox. Let's think about this a bit. All right, love to hear your comments. We'll see you.